In the turbulent decades of the 1960s, 70s, and also the 80s, Chicago was a battleground of gang violence. But amidst this chaos, several influential gang leaders like David Barksdale, Jeff Ford, Willie Lloyd, and Mr. Larry Hoover made efforts to push for peace and community building. David Barksdale, leader of the Disciples, and Larry Hoover, leader of the Gangsters, were key figures in attempting to broker truce among rival gangs to reduce violence. Their efforts, although fraught with challenges, aimed at fostering unity within the African American communities to combat systematic issues of poverty and racism. Jeff Fort, yeah, my man Jeff, leader of the Black Peace Stones, also ventured into community development by transforming his gang into a quasi-religious organization, the El Rickets, with the intention of using the group's influence for positive social change. Willie Lloyd, who led the Almighty Vice Lords, similarly sought to redirect the gang's focus towards community improvement initiatives. Despite the inherent contradictions and the ongoing criminal activities of these gangs, these leaders' efforts to promote peace and community solidarity reflect the complex interplay of power, survival, and desire for social reform in an era marked by significant social economic challenges for African American communities in Chirac, baby. Now peep this here. Willie Lloyd, a prominent leader of the Almighty Vice Lords, was a significant figure in the efforts to push for peace and better the community in Chicago. During his leadership, particularly in the late 20th century, Lloyd emphasized the need for reducing violence and shifting the gang's focus towards constructive community involvement. Under his direction, the Vice Lords increasingly engaged in social and community programs, aiming to transform their image and role within the neighborhood. But Lloyd advocated for peace initiatives, including truce with rival gangs to curb the rampant violence that plagued Chicago streets. He believed that unity among gang members could be leveraged for positive change, rather than perpetrating cycles of retribution and conflict. Yo, Almighty Vice Lords under Lloyd's influence participated in various community development projects, such as organizing food drives, providing educational support, and advocating for economical opportunities for disadvantaged youth in the hood. You know what I'm talking about? These efforts were part of a broader strategy to address the root cause of gang involvement, such as poverty and the lack of access to education and employment. Despite his criminal backgrounds, Willie Lloyd's push for peace and community betterment highlights the potential for change within the most notorious groups. You know what I'm talking about? His actions reflect a complex legacy, one that underscores the possibilities for transformation and the positive impact that leaderships can have on urban communities struggling with violence and social economical hardships. Oh, my man's Mr. Larry Hoover, Pops, the old man, the influential leader of the gangsters, played a pivotal role in advocating for peace and community improvement through initiatives like the 21st Century Vote. Remember that? Voices of Total Empowerment, you know what I'm talking about? And United in Peace, yeah, efforts in the 1990s, yeah. Hoover sought to rebrand the Gangster Disciples from a notorious organization into a political and community organization. You know, do the right thing. At the right moment, you're going to get the right results. You know what I'm talking about? This shift was part of a broader vision to address the systematic issues affecting the African American communities in Chicago and beyond. Now, the 21st Century Vote was one of Hoover's key initiatives aiming to mobilize the African American communities to engage in political process by encouraging street members and community residents to register to vote and participate in elections. Mr. Hoover hoped to influence local and national policies that directly impacted their lives. This effort was part of a larger strategy to use political power as a means of achieving social and economic justice, you know? Additionally, Hoover promoted the United in Peace campaign, which sought to broker truce among rival gangs and reduce violence in Chicago neighborhoods. By advocating for peace and unity, Hoover aimed to create a safer environment for the residents and foster a sense of collective responsibility for the community's well-being, you know? These efforts reflected his belief that addressing the root cause of gang violence, such as poverty, lack of education, and the limited economical opportunities required a unified approach and active participation in the democratic process. You know what I'm talking about? Follow the leader. You know what I'm saying? While Larry Hoover's criminal activities, all imaginary on parts of the government, and ongoing incarceration complicated his legacy. His push for peace and political engagement through initiatives like the 21st Century Vote and United in Peace highlight a significant attempt to transform gang influence into a force for positive community change. You know what I'm talking about? But people, my guy though. Now Jeff Fort, the leader of the Black Peace Stones, made significant efforts to gain political connections overseas and promote unity within his community. Fort's approach was unique and complex, reflecting on both his ambitions for the gang and his vision for his role in broader and social political context. In the 1970s, Fort sought to transform the Black Peace Stones into a more organized and influential entity by adapting a quasi-religious identity under the name El Rookies. This transformation was partly an attempt to gain political legitimacy and to unify its followers under a common spiritual and ideological battle. By rebranding the gang as a religious organization, Fort aimed to distance the group from its criminal past and present it as a constructive force in the community. Fort's attempt to gain political connection overseas were primarily focused on establishing ties with the Libyan government under Muammar Gaddafi. He believed that forming an alliance with a foreign power could provide the resources and support needed to strengthen his organization's position and influence. In 1986, Fort and several El Rookie members were accused of conspiring with Libyan operatives to commit acts of terrorism in the United States in exchange for financial support. The plot ultimately led to Fort's conviction and life imprisonment. Free that man, you know what I'm saying? Innocent, free Jeff Fort, man. You know what I'm talking about? Despite the controversial nature of these efforts, Fort's underlying purpose for unity in the community was evident. He aimed to use the political and financial leverage gained from these connections to support community development initiatives, reduce violence, and empower African American communities in Chicago. Fort's vision included economical self-sufficiency, better education, and improved living conditions for his followers and their families. While his methods and alliance were highly questionable and ultimately illegal, Jeff Fort's action highlighted a complex attempt to elevate his organization's status and impact through political and international connections. You know what I'm talking about?